lied to yourself at times, now you're falling apart. Soon giving in this time, 'cause we're falling apart.
Hello there, coming to you live from the attic. This is a special report for JW Watch, the show that keeps a close eye on all things JW, offering Jehovah's Witnesses a more objective viewpoint on current developments that the governing body almost certainly doesn't want them to hear. Yesterday, a video appeared on jw.org promoting, of all things, the Service Committee, arguably the most sinister component of the Jehovah's Witness leadership that is responsible for policing the lives of Jehovah's Witnesses and orchestrating the widespread cover-up of child abuse. In today's show, I will be slicing through the spin and giving you the real version of what goes on in this particular part of the organisation. Before we get stuck in, I do just want to do a quick check to make sure that all systems are functioning. So can you please indicate in the live chat whether you're seeing and hearing me properly? Because this is the attic, of course, and I can tell you the attic does not have as good internet connectivity as the bunker had. So if you could just indicate in the live chat. We're currently streaming on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. It's fine, Lloyd, says Jill. And John Howell says, all good, sound and vision. Fantastic. Well, that's really good to hear. So I can get stuck in, really. And yes, this is a really interesting video. I'm just going to real quick give you the title. It is Organizational Accomplishments, a Support to All Publishers. It's a 9.5-minute video, and as mentioned, it's clearly designed to promote the Service Committee. And without further ado, maybe we should get stuck in. And as appropriate, I will pause for comments at various junctures.
All over the world, as Jehovah's people, we preach to all who will listen, and we received loving support from our congregations. But how is the global preaching work organized? How do congregations stay united around the world? The Service Committee of the governing body oversees these tasks. Their responsibilities are to oversee the preaching work, oversee congregation organization, and to oversee the hospital liaison committee arrangement.
Okay, I'm going to pause it there. So this is broadly the outline of what we're going to be watching. These are the three components, essentially, of the Service Committee: oversee the preaching work, oversee congregation organization, and oversee the HLC arrangement. So it's not just the cover-up of abuse that this organization, that this particular part of the organization is involved in, which I'll maybe touch on further as we progress. It's also the wing of the organization that enforces the blood ban and has direction over the Hospital Services Information Department. So it's a really, really nasty part of the organisation. It's basically the bulldog, the governing body's bulldog, that gets the nasty stuff done. And the interesting thing is that every governing body member on the current governing body, the 8 members, has had some involvement in working for the service department before they were appointed to the governing body. It's almost like a proving ground for the Jehovah's Witness elite. If you can make it through, if you can rise through the ranks and be fine with what goes on in the service department, if you are okay with all the skeletons they've got in their closet, then you can be considered essentially for a role on the governing body. At least that's how I see things. And, I don't think it's any coincidence that all of the governing body members have that in their background. So with that said, let's proceed.
First, consider how the service committee supports you in the preaching work.
Coordinating the worldwide preaching work is an awesome privilege for the service committee. But we know that it was Jesus who gave the commission to go and make disciples of people of all the nations. And so we recognize that Jesus is the one in charge.
A real effort is made to provide assistance so that our brothers and sisters, wherever they are, can effectively fulfill their personal ministry. For example, in recent years, we've seen the introduction of special metropolitan public witnessing, prison witnessing, harbor witnessing, reaching out to displaced individuals, for example, individuals in refugee camps.
I'm going to pause there. So we're reaching out to individuals in refugee camps. What you're doing there is you're targeting people in an incredibly emotionally vulnerable situation. Let's face it. You're not going into those refugee camps to give people aid. You're not going in there to find a way of improving their bid for citizenship or whatever. You're going in there to exploit their desperation and offer them a community, which when you have literally nothing, when you're fleeing a war zone and all you really have are the clothes on your back, and suddenly these people show up and they're offering to let you into their club, you can understand why that would colour your judgment in terms of whether you say yes or no to a Bible study. So this is basically unashamedly kind of preying upon people in vulnerable situations. This is the vultures circling when they see someone who could be prone to manipulation by a cult. And we're now talking obviously about the preaching work, and as I don't know whether I did say at the beginning, there's going to be footage, clearly staged footage, showing governing body members involved in the preaching work. Let's continue.
And depending on our schedule or our circumstances, opportunities to witness informally may present the best way that we can fulfill our personal ministry.
So yes, this is the first. There's going to be 3 appearances from... Actually, there's going to be appearances from not just governing body members preaching, but also, I think, at least one bit of footage of a governing body helper preaching. But what's interesting, particularly about the footage of the 3 governing body members who are going to appear, and we're just seeing the first one there, Gerrit Loesch, who's the most senior governing body member. What's interesting is that they are all clearly staged. You're really telling me that this dude in the black hat who sat on a bench at like a bus stop or something, you're really telling me that there's nothing at all alarming about the fact that suddenly he's surrounded by a film crew. There's a camera on one side. There's a camera picking up the close-up shot of Gerrit Loesch's iPhone. Come on, I think I'm going to talk more about this later, but I just think it's incredibly telling that for whatever reason, the governing body appear desperate to portray themselves as being personally involved in a preaching work that they demand of rank and file members, but concerning which there's really very little evidence that they actually get involved in it themselves. So it seems that they are trying to address that vacuum of evidence with these staged appearances. Let's just pause, shall we, for some comments. I'm sorry, by the way, my ISO settings are less than optimal. My image is a bit dark for this one. And I would just like to let you all know that this is the last live stream, all being well, in the attic. Because, as some of you will know, the Lloyd Evans channel now has a new studio. So we signed contracts and got the keys, and it's just there waiting. It doesn't have the equipment set up yet. We need to rearrange furniture. We need to, get it all laid out the way we want it. But I do not plan to do any further live streams in the attic. This will hopefully be the last one. So just a little bit of news for you there. Simon Instone says, still stuck on harbour witnessing. What about the rivers, estuaries and beaches? I'm sure you can find them in all geographies. But yeah, they are quite proud of the harbour witnessing. And actually, you've reminded me that I think it was Seth Hyatt in his narration, his part of the narration, said that prison witnessing was something new. It's not new at all. I can remember them doing. I can remember there being an elder in our congregation when I was growing up, and prison witnessing was basically his baby. He used to go to Style Prison quite regularly and tell us about his exploits there. So, yeah, Jehovah's Witnesses are quite happy to swell their ranks with people who have committed crimes. And, not that I have anything against people who are convicts from moving on with their lives and having whatever religious beliefs they wish. But again, it smacks very much of the vultures circling, doesn't it? You have this literally captive audience that are in a bleak situation. And when someone is going through the mill, when someone is in a desperate situation, they are more prone to being manipulated by cults. I'm just scrolling through a little bit more. Cult of personality. It very much is, to be honest, Dream Candy. It's not just the governing bodies It's not just the governing body members who feature prominently in this particular video. It's also the governing body helpers. And you have, as you're going to see, lots of footage of them on the ground in sort of local disaster situations. And again, you just have to wonder about how genuine it is when clearly there's a film crew, Clearly they're not just doing it out of the goodness of their hearts if there's literally a film crew following them around. And they're using the material to promote the organisation, and in this case, promote the worst side of the organisation. They might as well have put a fake beard on the guy with the black hat. Yeah, they weren't really trying there. I think if they'd have spent a bit more time on this, they would have put a beard just to indicate that it's not a brother, which it probably is. Good call there, Andy Moon. So yes, I guess for now, those are all great comments. Thank you very much. And let's resume the video. Oh, hang on.
Well over 3,000 new disciples are being baptized every week And the preaching work is being done in 239 lands around the globe.
The Service Committee works under the direction of the governing body.
So we just heard there, by the way, thank you very much, Colder Pizza, for great name, isn't it? Not sure I'm such a fan of Colder Pizza, to be honest, but to each their own. And thank you very much for your super chat. We have there an image that I just want to talk about. Maybe we can make this full screen. So this is a shot of the service committee all meeting around a table. And I think it's worthy of some analysis because there's some very interesting body language, if I can put it that way. You'll notice a particular individual who is in the center of the shot, and that's Mark Sanderson. And I've spoken before about the fact that Mark Sanderson is clearly the one who's pulling the strings, or at least, I've interviewed a recently defected Bethelite who has indicated strongly that Mark Sanderson has the most influence on the governing body in particular. So Mark Sanderson is on the service committee there. To the far left of the shot, just peeking out from the edge of the frame, I'm pretty sure that's William Turner. Then you have Samuel Hurd in the background. Then you have Gerrit Loesch. Then you have Anthony Morris, probably hip flask within reach, discreetly tucked under the table. In the foreground, to the left, you have Christopher Maver. On Christopher Maver's right, Arthur and I were analysing this earlier. I believe that is Balthazar Perla Jr., who we haven't really seen much of on JW Broadcasting, but I think that's who it is. Then, again, in the background, moving left to right, you have Leon Weaver Jr. You then have Seth Hyatt sat next to him, and to the far right of the shot, you can see Gary Breaux. So I think it's actually worthwhile naming and shaming these individuals, because this again is the wing of the governing body that gets the really nasty stuff done. They are responsible for overseeing the industrial scale cover-up of child sexual abuse. They oversee the database that we know exists. It's not speculation. If it was speculation, I could have been sued to the moon and back by now with the amount of times I've been talking about it on this channel. But even the governing body, even the organization doesn't deny that there's a database. They just don't talk about it, at least publicly. But there is documented evidence to prove that this database exists. They even managed to grab it in Australia during the Australian Royal Commission. Unfortunately, more recently, ICSA has been far less diligent in doing its duty, in doing the same thing in England and Wales. But yeah, this is what really troubles me about this video is you have this wing of the organization that is doing evil work, not just with the cover-up of abuse, but with with sending out HLC goons to the bedsides of dying Jehovah's Witnesses to make sure they effectively martyr themselves. That's what this group of men that we're looking at now, that's what they're about. So I just thought it was worthwhile adding a little bit of commentary to this frame. And thank you so much, Nicole Mort Parker, for your very, very kind super chat. That's really, really generous. I appreciate that. Goodness knows we need it right now, having signed a new rental agreement for our office. So we're taking a little bit of a leap of faith, if I can put it that way, But I believe that, the channel needs to keep exposing stuff like this. So yeah, let's see what the future has in store. Anyway, let's proceed with the video.
We send significant matters to the governing body for direction. An example is the establishing of the teaching toolbox.
The Service Committee gives very close attention to what publications would be considered as basic tools for the ministry. And because there's relatively few of those, all of us can become very well acquainted with them. And thus we're able to become very effective in the ministry in preaching the good news and in starting and conducting productive Bible studies.
So now we have our second staged footage of this video showing a governing body member apparently engaged in the preaching work. And, clearly, I feel like at this point that they're frankly insulting the intelligence of Jehovah's Witnesses. Do they really think that Jehovah's Witnesses are going to be watching this video thinking, wow, this is Mark Sanderson mid-flow doing a Bible study with some doctor. And it just so happened at this particular moment in his room, in his Warwick accommodation, just so happened that there was a film crew to capture it. So, what more do I need to say? It smacks of them desperately kind of trying to scramble for some kind of material to quell any doubts among the rank and file as to whether they themselves are doing the work that they tell everyone else to do. And I'm not saying that they don't do preaching, by the way. I find it hard to imagine them doing preaching. And if they do preaching, who's their service partner? Are they really going preaching in the congregations to which they're assigned with rank and file members? Are they really going door to door, mucking in with just ordinary Jehovah's Witnesses in their congregation? I'm frankly skeptical that they do any preaching. I think it's possible that when they attend international conventions, due to the fact that they may be in a country where people won't recognize them, it wouldn't surprise me if they get whisked to some territory somewhere and hop out of the car for maybe 30 minutes or so, maybe an hour even, and do a little bit of preaching just to be able to say that they've done it themselves. But I really don't see this particular group of men as having any meaningful involvement in a work that they don't just encourage. In Tony Morris's case, he's said that if you don't preach, if you leave it for a few weeks without preaching, you're worthy of death. That was in his branch talk at the Trinidad branch. So just fascinating to see them clearly jumping through hoops here to show themselves as being engaged in the preaching.
A number of you are moving to serve where the need is greater. Many of you are simplifying your life. And in some cases, a number of you are learning and adapting to new cultures.
Many thousands have entered into the pioneer service. Now, this opens up other avenues of service, such as serving where the need is greater, serving on construction projects, and even entering into special full-time service. A special full-time servant does not mean that they themselves are special. What is special is the assignment they receive. Those in special full-time service might be assigned to serve as a special pioneer, or as a field missionary, or in the circuit work.
We need you young brothers and sisters to set spiritual goals, to go to SKE, for you young brothers to qualify to be ministerial servants and elders, and you sisters to want to be pioneers and missionaries, to drive the work ahead worldwide. Brothers and sisters, when we see your love for the preaching work, it is so heartwarming for us. No matter what your circumstances, you're...
Oh God, is that person fishing? Leave me alone, I'm trying to catch a fish. This is not a good time. Oh God, and it's clearly staged again, but that makes me laugh.
doing your best to share the good news.
Okay, let's pause there, shall we? So, I must have missed that fishing thing when I was first watching this. It just kind of hit me there for the first time for some bizarre reason. But yeah, Mark Sanderson really, really has a bee in his bonnet about young people pledging their lives to the organization and not being involved in higher education. You know, we saw this, didn't we, at this year's Pursue Peace convention, where he spent the opening and concluding remarks in one of his talks essentially patting himself on the back for spurning higher education. Apparently he accidentally got a scholarship without even trying. Somehow a university contacted him and sent him an acceptance letter, and he got grants and everything. You know, goodness knows what his secret is. But without even trying, all of that happened, and he used this to manipulate. To, they call it positive peer pressure, don't they? To pressure young Jehovah's Witnesses into effectively following his example. And it's for me, one of the most enraging elements of the organization, the way they aren't just content to have their theology and let people decide to what extent they wish to get involved and at what age they wish to get involved. They are happy to sabotage people's futures and people's future financial security in order to get people involved in pioneering and that sort of thing. So yeah, this part did upset me. I'm just going to take a few comments before we move forward. Joe 1849 says, I would like to see someone from the governing body going door to door like they preach. I'm going to try and play devil's advocate here. I guess if you are a governing body member, how do you prove that you're going door to door without there being a camera crew? You know, I guess that would be my defense if I were a governing body member. I guess the problem that they have is that they project such an arrogant, aloof image. They don't appear approachable, you know, despite the footage that we're going to be seeing of them, you know, cuddling people and that sort of thing. Let's face it, if you're an ordinary rank and file Jehovah's Witness and you have a concern, you're not going to be able to, you know, get Tony Morris on speed dial or in any fashion really, and, you know, ask him a question. They're very sheltered, aren't they? I think that the Warwick compound has almost been designed to make them even more sheltered than they were in Brooklyn, because of course when they were in Brooklyn, investigative reporter Trey Bundy was able to pounce on Tony Morris when he was moving between the buildings, and he disappeared into a door without answering any questions. I think that they've kind of factored that issue into the Warwick design so that they can be even more cocooned from reality. So I don't know. I just think that it would be difficult for them to prove that they're engaged in the preaching work, but the reason why it's difficult to believe they're engaged in the preaching work is because of the arrogance that they themselves project, if I can put it that simply. D says, it angers me that I've wasted so many decades with Jehovah's Witnesses. I can relate to that. I'm sure many can, D. Sherry Taylor says, they want you to think they are regular guys, not on a pedestal. That's for the next video. That does seem to be very much the intention, I think, of this video, is to, number one, promote the service committee and put across a positive image of, again, the most sinister side of the organisation. And while they're doing that, show the governing body and governing body helpers to be regular guys, you know, who you might go for a pint with. I'm sure Tony Morris would bite your hand off, by the way. It wouldn't be a pint of beer, I don't think. Yes, you young brothers and sisters. I think Sarah Parsons picked up on that part as well. So thank you for those comments. Let's now proceed with the video.
1 Corinthians chapter 14, verse 33 and verse 40 tells us that Jehovah wants things to be done orderly and by arrangement. The scriptures confirm that the heavenly part of Jehovah's organization is well organized. The earthly part must be as well. Our motto is fast on principles and slow on rules.
My blood was boiling at this point. Let's hear him say that again. If I can just get Tony Morris to repeat himself.
Organized. The earthly part must be as well. Our motto is fast on principles and slow on rules.
Fast on principles, slow on rules. And this is a man who, in his briefcase, because he's not just a governing body member, he's an elder. All governing body members are elders. In this man's briefcase, there's a book called Shepherd the Flock of God. And it is pages upon pages upon pages of rules that probe into almost every facet of a Jehovah's Witness's life, that have an entire chapter with paragraph upon paragraph of various things that you can be disfellowshipped for and estranged from your family for. You know, and that's just the Shepherd book. You then have the branch organization manual, you have the correspondence guidelines, you have the circuit overseer guidelines, you have all of these secretive eyes-only documents that the rank and file don't get to see, that are essentially pages upon pages upon pages of rules. And many of the rules don't even try to give you a scriptural principle. There's no scriptural principle, for example, for the rule that says if enough time has passed, if you're an elder and you've committed a sin and enough time has passed, many years have passed, you needn't necessarily be sanctioned for it. You needn't necessarily be reproved or disfellowshipped. And because they made that rule for elders, they made a similar rule for the rank and file that's also in the Shepherd book. But this is in a video I made. I think it was 10 things Jehovah's Witnesses don't know about their own religion or something like that. And I think I also might have mentioned it in the video I made about unbiblical Jehovah's Witness teachings. Unfortunately, Tibor's not here to graciously show the thumbnails, but I'm just saying that in case you happen to be watching this live stream as a Jehovah's Witness and you're folding your arms thinking, this guy's talking a load of nonsense. What's he talking about? About these kind of provisions for dodging the for dodging disfellowshipping. I'm telling you, they're there. They're there in black and white. And this drunken blob in front of us. Sorry, I just can't help myself when I see him. The insults just start flowing, and I need to be a little bit more restrained, I guess. This individual in front of us has in his briefcase evidence that what he's saying is a total lie, a total misrepresentation of reality.
By holding to what is written in the scriptures, we uphold Jehovah's thinking.
There's Seth Hyatt in the preaching work. That actually looks like it could be a candid shot, because you'll notice I think if it were a staged shot, I doubt it would be done in quite that way, with him not wearing a tie. He's in it seems a country where the witnesses don't need to preach with ties. And he also has a badge card indicating that he is there attending an international convention. Again, I have this theory, it's probably based on what I've been told by insiders, that for international conventions, the governing body members and governing body helpers will get whisked to some location where they can do a bit of preaching. An international convention, by the way, is just an ordinary convention, but with the opportunity of seeing a governing body member or a governing body helper, essentially. That's really the difference. So you have to be a bit special to be accepted for attending, to be a delegate. But yeah, here you have Seth Hyatt in his Man from Del Monte hat. And apparently Seth Hyatt is a lovely guy. When I interviewed Daniel Graves, he said that Seth Hyatt was really nice. And I can kind of imagine him being nice. But he, again, is on this service committee. And he's one of the men. If we were going to round up and criminally prosecute everyone in the organization who has a direct hand in the industrial scale cover-up of abuse, nice though he may be, loved though he may be, I'm afraid Seth Hyatt would be in the police van. He would be, if there were to be any real justice on that particular issue.
Knowing that we're imperfect, not infallible.
Lots of shaking hands.
As the Bible clearly says, we are not the masters over others' faith.
As the Bible clearly says, we are not the masters over others' faith. So, again, there's just ample evidence proving that these are just words and that the reality is very different. And in my recent convention rebuttals, some of you may remember, I went through the application form for Bethel. So when you want to go to work in one of the Jehovah's Witness facilities, you have to fill in this application form. And you're asked a bunch of questions about your private life. You're even asked about the health of your family members. You're asked to divulge medical information about non-consenting family members. And at the end of the form, elders get to weigh in. They get to rank you. They get to score how good you are. And they have to answer questions about what your habits are like, whether you are known to watch dodgy entertainment, what your track record is, anything that you might have been counseled on. All of that needs to get included. So elders literally police the lives of Jehovah's Witnesses. If they didn't police the lives of Jehovah's Witnesses, then many of the questions on that Bethel application form wouldn't be there. You wouldn't be able to answer them as an elder if you weren't involved in policing the congregation. So the wording here is utterly disingenuous. By the way, the individual here being hugged in front of a picture of a llama. I'm sorry. And Caleb wearing indigenous or native clothing. Whenever I see llamas now, I think of Minecraft. I've been playing Minecraft too much. But the wandering trader is going to be nearby, I think. But this individual being hugged is, again, Baltazar Perla Jr., who we saw the back of in the previous boardroom image of the service committee. You have Leon Weaver Jr. welcoming someone into a facility. And you also have here, this is the third shot that I wanted to mention. You have here Tony Morris and his wife on someone's doorstep. And maybe you can see in the frame that his wife has a Caleb and Sophia pin on her cardigan. And also she is wearing very prominently a rather old convention badge. And Tony Morris is I think, also has this convention badge, although you can't see it on that shot. But I spoke to Arthur about this because Tony Morris, Tony Morris lifts up this convention invitation, and based on the convention invitation and the card that they're wearing, we figured out that this is footage from 2014. 2014 footage of Tony Morris on a doorstep. This was filmed 8 years ago. You know, if I were a governing body member and I were trying to make a case for being regular in the ministry, I wanted people to know that I'm just as involved as any Jehovah's Witness. And a 2022 video was being released depicting me involved in preaching work. I would be embarrassed, number one, if it were footage that was filmed 8 years ago. And I would also be embarrassed if it were clearly staged footage, because again, are we really supposed to believe that a random householder is happy having a film crew over his shoulder while a Jehovah's Witness calls on him? So it's all it's very superficial and very artificial and very, it just doesn't sit well, does it? And if they have to engineer these shots, if they're doing such obvious kind of PR stunts, it does beg the question, I think, to what extent are they really involved in a preaching work that Tony Morris in particular has said you're worthy of death if you don't engage in it enough. I need to find my place again now. Let's see if I can.
The Bible clearly says we are not the masters over others' faith.
That's Gary Bro.
Our brothers and sisters are under much pressure these
Mini-let.
days. There's the spirit of the world, there's health problems, there's persecution, there's disasters. But the elders are there with the brothers and sisters, encouraging them and keeping the congregations clean.
Keeping the congregations clean. Do you mean like getting out the mop and bucket? You know, are we getting out the glass cleaner and the cloth and making sure the windows are sparkling? What do we mean by keeping the congregation clean? I think we know what that means. Keeping the congregation clean means judicially, making sure that, again, the congregation is policed, that if anyone has sex with a consenting adult to whom they're not married, they get hauled in front of 3 men and asked invasive questions. And if they don't give evidence of being, quote unquote, repentant, they can be estranged from their families. That's what keeping the congregation clean means.
We love you, dear elders and circuit overseers, and respect you for the heavy load you carry.
I think Tony Morris is carrying a heavy load, so he knows all about that.
We have congregations in over 200 lands and in hundreds of languages. So providing spiritual food in the form of theocratic direction that meets the needs of the brothers and sisters worldwide is not an easy task. So we're in communication with the branch offices in over 80 lands. Those brothers on the branch committees are like eyes and ears to the governing body, and as a result, we know what the needs are. The service committee sends out theocratic direction by means of the service departments in all the branch offices. As soon as the service departments get that information, they begin translating it, and then they ensure that it's distributed to some 7,000 circuit overseers and over 700,000 elders worldwide.
Right, this is really interesting. So what you've just heard over the last few seconds is a brilliant description of a top-down religious hierarchy. This is a centralized religious leadership, and they've just explained in a nutshell how it works. I'm kind of grateful in a way that they've done this, because, you know, in the future when documentaries are being made about the Jehovah's Witness religion, all you need to do is just show these few seconds to explain how it works. So you have the governing body. The service committee of the governing body is, as I've already described it, their bulldog, the wing of the organization that gets the nasty stuff done. They send a direction out to the various branch offices around the world. The branch offices send it to the 7,000 circuit overseers around the world. And the circuit overseers are the local enforcers on the ground who visit congregations twice a year to make sure there is quote-unquote unity, to make sure everything is being done according to what the governing body wants, according to the rules that Tony Morris says are virtually non-existent. This is a top-down autocracy, isn't it? I am also grateful as well for the stats that we had there. It's nice to know 7,000 elders, 7,000 circuit overseers and 700,000 elders worldwide. Of course, they seem to be quite keen on increasing that number, because in recent times they've been passing out direction, basically encouraging... Leighton's making me laugh. Is that the start to EastEnders? No, it's not the start to EastEnders, but close. Can't forget what I can't. Oh yeah, so they passed out direction recently, suggesting that they are basically relaxing on how stringent the criteria are for bringing in new elders. So they're quite anxious to kind of fill the vacuum of, you know, there's got to be a turning door where, you know, elders and servants are waking up and they need to be replaced, and they are happy to let elders and servants be appointed younger, and they've, you know, released even, I think, propaganda videos, you know, indicating that this is the new direction. This is they really need to get more bodies in to basically, again, police the congregations.
That means that announcement or that information will then reach your congregation.
Like Jesus did with his disciples, we want to do everything we can to help you to carry out your personal ministry to the best of your abilities.
Nice to see Sam Hurd out of his womb chair.
And of course, circumstances. When making headquarters visits or shepherding visits to the branches, I keep in mind that I'm visiting Jehovah's sheep, and they have to be cared for and fed.
It's very similar to the excitement that's generated when congregations have the visit of their circuit overseer. That same excitement is generated, albeit on.
I can just imagine Gerrit Loesch on One Man and His Dog, whistling his sheepdog. You know, come on, Shep. I can't do it. But yeah, I like his outfit there. Come on, let's be fair. That's a stylish outfit. I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind replicating that when I'm out on the town.
On a larger scale, when representatives come to the branches, it allows for that personal interaction where you can correspond with the branches, give them the encouragement they need, things that they may need assistance with, but it has a tremendous unifying effect.
So what we've just heard described there is, again, evidence of a top-down religious hierarchy. It's not just congregations that get visits from circuit overseers. Branches get visits from members of the service committee. So they get these visits to make sure that the branches are doing things properly. They've got everything covered, haven't they? There's always a way that the governing body can kind of double up and make sure that they have their fingers on everything, that there's no possible way that any branch or any congregation or any circuit overseer could kind of just spiral off and start doing their own thing. They have all of their bases covered when it comes to making sure they have total control. Christopher Mather, by the way, at the head of the table there, speaking to a branch. I don't know which country it's in. Actually, there's a map in the background. I'm not. My geography isn't good enough to tell you which maps are on the wall.
We love you, dear brothers, for your self-sacrificing spirit,
he said, reading into an auto cue,
and the hard work that you do. We know that you're doing Jehovah's work, and we know it's not always easy.
Wherever we go in the world, we see the love that you, brothers and sisters, have for Jehovah and for the preaching work. And when we see what you're willing to do for Jehovah, it warms our hearts and encourages us to keep going.
Oh, okay. So now it's the HLC part. And I'm going to have to be really, really careful here, because this really, really does anger me, because we're talking about death now. We're talking about a wing of the organization that hurries people towards their graves. Let's just take a few of the comments. Sweden, yeah, it could have been Sweden. Again, especially with it being at that angle, it was hard for me to identify the country, but it could have been Sweden. Let's scroll up. So many children they've killed. I agree, Danny, and I obviously did a video on Mark Sanderson giving a talk for the HLC. It's a leaked video, so again, it's a video that ordinary Jehovah's Witnesses don't get to see. But the whole subject of his video was not just giving direction on how to enforce the blood teaching sort of generally for Jehovah's Witnesses, but specifically for children, and even more specifically in cases where babies needed blood. And he was there lecturing a room of non-medical professionals as though he was a medical professional. I wish every single medical professional could see that video, and immediately they would understand what they're up against when the HLC goons show up on hospital wards. Some funny comments. I have some funny viewers, it must be said. A Black Sheep says, less drama in EastEnders these days than in the faith convention. Exactly, yeah. That's a real soap opera, isn't it? The stuff that we've been seeing there. So, yeah, let's crack on, shall we, with the video.
The work of the hospital liaison committees is something that is very precious. When we need help, Jehovah's organization is there to provide it. To help us become better acquainted with the hospital liaison committee arrangement, we should all take a look at the video, A Loving Provision for Times of Distress.
A rebuttal to which I did in my video, Angels of Death.
There's nothing more frightening than learning that we have a serious disease or learning that a loved one has been in a serious accident. Jehovah has given us the HLC arrangement to provide the comfort, the encouragement, the strength that we need at those difficult times.
That is utter misrepresentation of what the Hospital Liaison Committee does. Utter misrepresentation. If he was talking about patient visitation, then you could say he was being accurate. Patient visitation is for when a Jehovah's Witness finds themselves in hospital due to, as he said, an accident or some disease, and blood is not an issue. They just need to have some encouragement, which is fine. You know, I don't begrudge anyone having members of their religion or whatever coming to visit them under that particular set of circumstances. But the HLC, which is what Mark Sanderson here is talking about, and in fact, we've had the header. So this entire section of the video is discussing the HLC. Mark Sanderson has completely misrepresented here what the HLC does and what it is for. It is not simply about helping Jehovah's Witnesses when they are in an accident or when they have diseases. It is specifically about blood. It is specifically about what was the wording that was used in the video that Chris Maver presents. There was specific wording. Oh, that's right. Helping Jehovah's Witnesses and medical professionals reach an agreement or something of the kind when it comes to the use of blood. In other words, the HLC is to make sure Jehovah's Witnesses refuse blood, and they go into hospitals and give presentations to doctors and medical professionals where they talk about medical alternatives and where they encourage using medical alternatives to blood transfusions. But what they don't say to medical professionals is that they will punish Jehovah's Witnesses who do accept blood. It's in the Shepherd book. Again, Mark Sanderson on our screen here. Let's improve the shot a little bit. He needs. I'm calling you out here, Mark, so no skulking away into the shadows, if you don't mind. Not that we can miss you. But Mark Sanderson has in his briefcase, again, because he's an elder, the Shepherd, the Flock of God book, which he, as a governing body member, had a hand in writing. And he knows that in the section on disassociation, it says that you can be automatically disassociated, in other words, shunned by Jehovah's Witnesses if you are a Jehovah's Witness, and you willfully and unrepentantly accept a blood transfusion. That's what HLCs do not say when they're doing their charm offensive visits to hospitals. And so what they're effectively doing is assuming a Grim Reaper role by the bedside and making it as difficult as possible for a Jehovah's Witness to change their minds regarding blood. Because who knows when the seconds are ticking down and your very life is ebbing away, and let's say you have kids to think about, who knows what decision you would make. But then in the corner of your eye, there's a suit and tie. You know? It's again, the HLC arrangement is killing people. It's killing thousands, as I established, or we established, Daniel Graves and I, because Daniel Graves has been on the hospital information services desk. So I pressed him on the numbers, and he said in his 3.5 years of working on the hospital information services desk, he said it was thousands of witnesses that died in 3.5 years. So that's what the HLC stands for. It's not about just helping witnesses when they have a scrape, or when they get into an accident, or when they have an illness. Mark Sanderson knows this, and he is entirely misrepresenting the HLC to his audience. What a horrible man.
Difficult times.
We cherish our privilege to preach and worship together. In this divided world, our peace, love, and unity are a modern-day miracle.
They're not really a miracle. All cults, all cults have unity. I mean, show me a cult where there isn't much unity. You know, it's kind of the thing that cults do, is have enforced unity. Good grief.
With Jehovah's blessing, we are confident that the preaching work will continue to advance and the congregations will be made firm in the faith.
And that's it. So that is the video. And hopefully you can understand why I was so keen to go through it. I'm frankly struggling right now to keep on top of all of the propaganda material that is gushing out of the Jehovah's Witness organization. Tomorrow I film my final convention rebuttal, and then it's immediately on to the September JW Broadcasting episode, which is one of the worst JW Broadcasting episodes I think I've ever seen. But I felt this was important. I felt that this was a really important video to show you all. Nice to see Arthur here. Not unity, but uniformity. Absolutely. Sherry Bakewell says, I have relatives that are Jehovah's Witnesses. I worry if they get ill, the HLC will have more rights than family. Well, that was certainly the case in the case of Eloise Dupuis in Canada, which I talk about in the Angels of Death video. They make it their habit of inserting themselves in deeply personal, deeply stressful situations. And yes, it has been known for them to even effectively act as gatekeepers for family members. That's been known to happen. So you're right to worry. Linda O'Keefe says, the only contact I've had since 1997 from my mother is texts saying who's died in the congregation. I sent a sarcastic reply last month, said you'd better save your credit for when Armageddon comes. So you're experiencing shunning, Linda. And again, the service committee is the wing of the organization that effectively is behind all that. The service committee directs the congregations. The service committee directs the elders. The service committee decides on how cases get handled. If there's say an appeal, you know, it's the branch. Sorry, I should just be absolutely correct. The branch committee adjudicates ultimately if an appeal committee, which is set up by a circuit overseer, disagrees with the original judicial committee. So, but it's the service committee that has oversight of all of this. And again, if we were going to start rounding up, you know, the ones most responsible for the global cover-up of thousands of cases of child sexual abuse, it would be the service committee that I would most urgently want to see in handcuffs, quite frankly. So it's a really, really nasty element of the organization, worthy of comment. I am actually going to leave it there. I was thinking about doing a viewer invasion, but I kind of want to keep this video reasonably short because I want people to see it, you know, and I don't want it to be too long. So I hope you don't mind if we skip the viewer invasion this time, but it's really lovely to see 350 watching across Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. And needless to say, I hope that some or all of this is useful to those who watch after the fact. Thank you so much for all of the comments. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you for the support of the channel. Again, I intend this to be my last ever live stream from the attic. It's been a short, how can I put it? It's been in use for a short while, but I think it's done its job pretty well. And tomorrow I will be doing the last bit of filming in the attic. And because Tibor's on holiday at the moment, I'm going to let him enjoy his holiday. Goodness knows he needs it. Because of all of the many hours of labouring over incredibly triggering material that he has to do. So when he comes back off holiday, we'll get the new studio set up. And I hope to do a live stream showing you all round the studio. So look forward to that. But yes, thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe for similar videos, and I hope you have a nice day. Thank you for watching.